So for today's Windows on Wednesday, we're going to go back to my NEC PC because it's probably the most convenient one that I've got and the only retro PC that's currently working, since I'm still in the process of doing work on a bunch of other machines. But what I want to try to do today is see if I can get this to work with Windows on A5. I know what you're thinking already. No, it doesn't support USB 2, but this card's supposed to support USB 1 as well. And I'm hoping that that'll be good enough to get it to work on here. I'll explain. So as you can see, I do have 95 installed, but it's version C. USB support was added to the version B release of Windows 95, I believe. So you need that or version C in order to be able to do it, as well as a few other updates and everything installed, which I've already done myself ahead of time, and I'll go over them in a bit. It's only available to OEMs, so you could not just go to Best Buy, CompUSA, whatever, and buy a copy. You had to get it through other means, and technically you couldn't just even buy it. You had to buy it with a new computer, or at least components that could be used to make a computer, like a motherboard, CPU. Some sellers would kind of stretch the rules a little bit and, well, you got to buy a mouse. Okay, fine. I'll buy this $10 mouse in order to buy the OEM version of Windows. But you went ahead and picked it up. You could install it and all that, but it didn't install the USB support as well as some other things. You had to do that manually. I already, like I said, I pre-installed everything, but basically, let's go ahead here and get a little bit closer here. I'm not going to do any video capture today just because of the issues I had last time. I mean, I was able to do a successful capture, but it was very blurry. And I got to try to see if I can get like 800 by 600 to translate over into 1080p, 4K, something like that, without it looking like a blurry mess. I could adjust the resolution of the display adapter to 1280 by 1024. That'll translate a lot better, but it'll be harder to see on screen for when I want to do those shots. So anyway, I went ahead and copied them off of the actual install disk because they do come on the CD. But the only ones you need to worry about are basically the last 3 files. And this text file here is basically just for explaining, how to install it. Effectively, you install USB sup. It'll prompt you to reboot, and please do reboot. Do not install anything else before without rebooting. Do not install anything after running that without rebooting. Install the USB sup, reboot, and then you have to run USB up to, so USB EUPD2, which is an additional update. It will not prompt you to restart, but per the instructions, you have to. And again, install it on its own, reboot before you do any other installations. Once that's done, you should, in theory, have USB support. If you don't follow that procedure, you will result in a blue screen and or an error. I think it's like vmm32.vxd, and the system will just crash. And you'll either spend a lot of time trying to recover it or have to reinstall from scratch. So ask me how I know. Anyway, so you install those components, and in theory, you should have USB support. So pick this particular card up because A, it was new in box. It's got the NEC chipset, which is a very good USB chipset in my opinion. It should be backwards compatible. I don't know how that's going to work with Windows 95 because this is designed for 98 and newer. But I figured, you know what? Let's give it a shot. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. That's part of the fun of retro computing, right? Trying things that are unconventional. So I've already got the case off because I was doing some other work. So I figured I'd just leave it off. And that's why it's a little bit louder than normal, because the fan is running in there on the overdrive CPU nonstop, unfortunately. So, but we'll go ahead and we'll get this installed and cross our fingers. All right, so first let's take a look at what comes in the box here. Like I said, it's new and sealed. Hopefully it wasn't resealed, but considering what I paid for it, it's not a big deal if it was, because it wasn't that expensive. Got the card and this here. So more than likely this may not work unless the drivers in 95, will just detect the card as a USB 1 controller and go from there, because there's no drivers in the box. I may be able to find some online though if I need to, but we'll see. Again, this is all for fun. There's the card. It's very basic. It's got an internal USB port, which is nice, as well as 3 external ones. It's a low profile card. I didn't realize that. It's not written on the box, and I know it was not on in the description, and even the packaging shows a full size. Interesting. Well, that's a bummer. Well, like, I should be able to remove the bracket at the very least and use that. Maybe I can 3D print something later on. That'll do. So, of course, now comes the other problem. While I do have a free PCI slot, it is obscured by the IDE connector. So I'm going to see if I can try to fit it in there. If not, what I will do is remove the, well, I won't remove the CF card or leave it in there because that's the operating system, but I'll just remove it from the bracket and let it hang on the side or something for now, just so we can go ahead and test. So somehow I managed to get it in there, barely. The other thing I realized is that I hope this card doesn't need 3.3 volts because these PCI slots only supply 5 volts. So I'm hoping it has a voltage regulator on there to supply what it needs. We'll find out. This may have been all for nothing. All right, let's see if anything blows up. So far, so good. No errors. Oh. PCI Universal Serial Bus. Oh, that's right. I installed from disk. And I didn't copy them to the hard drive beforehand. Cannot be found. Interesting. So there's already a copy of the file on the hard drive, so screw it. We'll just use that. Hoping that I am good to go, but not. That could be because of the USB 2 controller part. It's still detecting things, so it may still work. Worst case scenario is that I have to try to find some drivers. Alright, now let's go into Device Manager and see. There's going to be some errors because there are some devices that are conflicting, like the onboard ProMotion is conflicting with Intense 3D Voodoo card, so it's disabled. For whatever reason, this device keeps showing up on the audio card, and I have all the drivers installed, but it doesn't know what it is, so whatever. This here is the onboard game port joystick. I cannot disable it, so I just disable it within here. But here we go, Universal Serial Bus Controller. Let's see if I can plug a device in. All right, so I'm just going to install this Microsoft mouse, which is USB. Windows found new hardware. Unknown device. I don't think I can. Interesting. But it does see it. I don't know which unknown device it would be, though. course, it's not going to know what a USB mouse is. You do need drivers for that. Let me do a little bit of investigation online and see if I can find a generic USB mouse driver that will work with Windows 95. So after doing a little bit of research, some people are saying that 95 did not come with HID support, for things like mice, keyboards, game pads, and joysticks that are all USB based and all that fun stuff, but we'll get into that in a bit. I did find some NEC drivers. I'm not sure if they work on here, but I guess we can find out. Let's see. Let's go back here because I believe. Let's see if we can. Guess that didn't work. Let's try. Let's see what other options I can come up with. So there's a trick you can kind of do. If you right-click an INF file, it'll give you an option to install. It let me do it, didn't give me any errors, so let's just see if I was able to force install those drivers that way. Probably not, but let's see. Let me plug the mouse back in as I trip over half of the things in my office here. Yeah, it's not going to know what it is. However, I did find some drivers for IntelliPoint, which this mouse should be compatible with. Maybe, maybe not. We do have a bunch of drivers here. So let's go ahead and do this. Unplug it and plug it back in again. Just under the setup folder. I guess not. So that didn't work. Alright, so let's try installing this and see what happens. It was not able to install the driver directly when I plugged it in, pointing to the INF file. Let's just try to run IntelliPoint and see what happens. Yeah, see. So the reason I did it this way is because the full installer forces you to install IE5, and I don't want to go through all of that. And that's unfortunate. I wonder if I can just run this. Nope. But I do have some other things here that we can attempt. So someone created this XUSB supplemental installer for Windows 95 OSR2, because apparently I'm not the only genius out there that's trying to get USB properly working Windows 95, as opposed to just installing Windows 98 SE and be done with it. And it was created by these individuals here. So, I'll try to leave a link below if I remember where I got this from. I think I might have found it on Vogons, but we'll have to see. And as you can see, it's an unofficial update that's supposed to add a bunch of drivers, mass storage devices, etc. Like a USB drive. And let's go ahead and must not be used if it's already installed. Alright, so I can. Yep, and we'll be back. Okay, so I went ahead, did the clean boot. I removed any remaining USB devices that I was able to detect anyway. Let's go ahead and run this here and see what happens. Of course, it's going to run ScanDisk just like the original driver did. Just fingers crossed that this won't actually break anything. Let's close everything down just to be safe. And we'll be back. So far, so good. Okay, that's probably just one of the other devices that I removed that probably weren't related to USB, but I wanted to remove them just to be on the safe side. There we go. Cool, it detects it. Before it was just like a generic one. USB 2.0. Interesting. And of course, that's the whatever device on the Sound Blaster card that Windows can't figure out what it is. Fingers crossed, no errors or anything. Cool. Let's try to plug the mouse back in and see what happens. Still doesn't know what it is. That's a bummer. Alright, so that isn't going to work. Maybe this mouse is just too new. I don't even know if it would work under 98, to be honest with you. I don't know if I have any other USB mice that are old enough that might work. Whenever I have any other devices I can try plugging in. You know what? Let's try plugging in a thumb drive and see what happens. I'll use the internal slot, or the internal port. Nothing at all. Oh, there we go. I don't know if it's going to work, but it does. Look at that. And of course, I was using that with flash floppy, so there's just a bunch of disk images on there, but as you can see, they work. How does ejecting work? Oh, even a little icon down here shows up. Cool. So that's kind of neat. That works. Wonder if a USB keyboard will work. I think I should have a spare one somewhere. I've got this older Dell USB keyboard. Let's see if it works. Yeah, it just doesn't know what HID devices are, which is unfortunate. Wonder if I can find HID support drivers for Windows 95. I'll be back again. So unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be any generic HID device drivers for Windows 95. If it wasn't written by a device manufacturer, specifically like for a mouse, keyboard, what have you, it just won't work. And there doesn't seem to be any hacks or workarounds. So, I mean, at least I was able to get a USB drive to work. I don't know if I have any other USB devices that would plug into here or not that aren't keyboards and mice and webcam maybe, but those pretty much do require their own specific drivers for them to work. Let me see. Do I have anything else that's USB? Not really. I mean, I have gamepads, but again, those won't work because they use the human interface device drivers that don't exist in 95. So, with that being said, let's wrap this video up. So, can I recommend Windows 95 for USB support? Not really. Unless you just want to use thumb drives or something, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of use out of it. Now, if you have a device that has actual drivers written for it specifically, then it should work fine. But I can also kind of understand why people would want to try to run Windows 95 and have USB support versus 98, because 98 is a little bit more resource intensive. I've noticed that even on my system with the 180 megahertz MMX overdrive processor, 96 megs of RAM, etc., 98 just doesn't run as smooth as 95 does. It's more reliable, sure, but if you're worried about performance, then it makes sense why people would try to put all this effort into trying to get USB working in 95. Anyway, yeah, it's basically if you really want to get USB working on your retro computer, mouse, keyboard, something like that, just stick with 98 SE. Anyway, that's it for this video. I mean, if you guys have any tips or suggestions, if you know of a way to actually get them working, leave some comments down below. Otherwise, thanks all. I will catch you later.